Welcome everyone to Voice of Terminus show number 28. I'm joined today with the fabulous cast, the VoT crew. Delinzia, say hello.
Hey everybody.
Lex, say hello.
Hello.
And Kodiak, say hello.
Good morning.
Hopefully a regular face on the VoT show, Kodiak. We hope to have him here more often. Today's topic is the Enchanter. We're going to talk about the Enchanter. And we've decided to give you guys that are taking part in the competition until the end of this show to, file off all the bits you need to be filing and change about and everything. So you got until the end of the show to send us your entries. So you got about roughly an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours roughly to send us your entries if you haven't done so already.
Yeah.
And Dal has something to announce as well, so I'll pass it over to Dal.
Yes. All right. We also got some new exciting stuff to show you. We're going to be zipping through the forums and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and we'll throw up this ad real quick to tell you what our new surprise is going to be.
Here we go, guys. And there we have it. We will be picking up a second show on Tuesday. Do you want to talk a bit about it, Dal?
Yeah, what we're going to do on Tavern Talk is we're going to talk about some hot topics in the forums. We're going to pick a couple posts out, and we're going to kind of discuss what people are talking about in the forums. In case you haven't been to the forums or you don't really want to go into the forums, we're going to go ahead and drag stuff out of there and talk about it, discuss it, do some theory crafting along with those forum posters. And also, what we're going to do too is we're going to go ahead and finish up the AMA with Brad. We all logged off yesterday and didn't realize that Brad was going to go ahead and take a little bit of a break, and then he went ahead and answered all the other questions that were submitted. So we're going to go ahead and pull those questions up next week on Tavern Talk, and we'll discuss those as well, so you guys don't miss out on that.
Yeah, basically the reason that we're going to do it into 2 shows is because this one, when we start adding the news and the media feeds and all that stuff to the end of this one, it goes way too long. So this one will just be class discussion, and then the Tavern Talk will be talking about like what's on Facebook, what's in the forums, what's all that other stuff.
Yeah. So let's get back into the topic in hand. I'll read off the description about the Enchanter and then the questions, and then we'll go through it, guys. So, through a single word, the Enchanter can turn the intent of an enemy and break even the strongest of wills into submission. And questions to get us rolling are AoE or single target, CC only, charmed NPCs timed or until logout, Enchanter's role on crafting, what specialization should the Enchanter have, and should they get illusions, and should that impact faction? So we'll kick it off with the first question. Well, actually, let's go into a quick description. Anybody playing Enchanter? Want to quickly describe to people what an Enchanter does, what his role is generally?
Well, everyone's pretty familiar with the Holy Trinity. Tank, DPS, healer. The Enchanter was a crowd control specialist, and they were kind of off to the side of that Holy Trinity. Everybody wanted them. Everybody needed them. They weren't a required thing. They specialize, like, say, you pull something and a patrol comes up behind you. Well, that's an ad. Normally, doing like a dungeon crawl, what you pulled is generally more than enough for you to handle. So the addition, bad. Very, very bad. The Enchanter can essentially put that extra mob on ice for an extended period of time, which kind of takes a lot of the pressure away, but they're also one of those classes that, decently easy to play, impossible to master.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was definitely a needed class, that's for sure.
Yes, it was, definitely. Yeah, they were the only ones that could wear the lightest forms of armor too. They couldn't wear anything but cloth, so they were stuck with the cloth armor. and they were basically the crowd control experts
And
with proficient at charming, stunning, and mesmerizing enemies.
they gave mana to the group, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
mana regen.
cast.
Yeah.
Yep,
They
mana
did
regen.
have
stuff.
they did have an awful lot of very useful buffs, such as haste for melees. They had basically the best mana regeneration buffs possible that worked in combat, not just out of combat. So they exponentially increased durability of your group, and it was like just one of those things where you know where you're going. 9 times out of 10, you're like, grab an enchanter.
Yeah. Another one of the nice things about the Enchanter too was, say you aggroed a bunch of those mobs, the Enchanter actually could pacify one of those mobs, actually reduce the aggro, and sometimes even reduce enough to where it would forget about you and wander back off, and as long as you were out of the aggro range. So that was a nice way to kind of break up the the crowd as well.
Right, so let's go and talk a bit about that since you mentioned crowd. AOA or single target crowd control only. What are your takes on that, guys? Should they have
All of the above. Don't give any restrictions to crowd control.
So what I'll do
If
is
they
quickly, while we talk about that, sorry about that, I'll bring up the streams because I think we have a Enchanter actually on the streams from VR, and we'll talk a bit about that question. And so carry on your thought process, mate.
Yes. Carry on your thought process, Kodiak.
Oh,
You have
sorry.
permission.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, of course, starting out low level, single target, but yeah, eventually working into being able to maybe an AoE type thing on the ground, any mobs in that area would be affected. I think we did see it with the webs, where they were able to web a whole group of mobs during one of these streams, stuff like that.
Yeah, true.
That kind of came off as a root to me.
Well, I mean, same theory.
Yeah, it's
but,
still a crowd. It's still a form of
yeah.
crowd control.
Yeah. But
It's one of those situational ones where you need the room to use it, and people only got to know to stay away from it.
Yeah, true.
So what's your take?
If you break it, you better be able to fight it. That's all I got to say.
What's your take on it? AoE? Should it be single? Should it be group? Should it be a bit of both?
I do believe that it should be a mixture of both, but I also believe that there needs to be a huge downside to the AEs. Either a whole lot more mana cost, a long cooldown, easily resistible, something. Because when you start adding the ability to control a very large number of mobs, you can run into some serious griefing, some serious exploits. Whereas with single target, it's pretty hard to mess that up. Make those single ones a little stronger, so it can do a higher level range maybe, or it lasts longer.
Yeah, I would say duration.
Generally tend to find a very good mix and a good balance between the two. So that you have
you're going to burn
AE.
through your mana so fast, casting the AoE one over and over again versus a single target every 2 or 3 minutes,
Yeah.
Right. Because if you, say you get a real bad pull, okay? Instead of getting the one thing, Aerodune pulls 45. Well, if you make AETC easily low cost, we'll say, that means you can essentially keep everything there on ice while you slowly pick them up, and that's not really what they want. But you still need a little bit of the AE just for when, the gnome hits the fan, basically.
So what's your take on it, Dal?
I like the idea of the single target, crowd control spell to be a little bit stronger than the area effect spell. The area effect should be just a little bit reduced, but like Lex is right, it should only affect so many mobs, in the area effect. That anything outside that area effect, they can't be targeted. But at the same time, the Enchanter obviously has to maneuver probably quickly to maybe use another one of their spells to actually mesmerize or pacify the other opponent to get it to walk away or leave the area. So, yeah, I kind of like to see it like the EverQuest Enchanter, because believe it or not, Enchanters were a very hard class to play in EverQuest. You had to be really, really good at what you were doing, because if you weren't, you could end up wiping your group if you didn't pay attention to the timers, know when that mob was getting ready to break Mez. It was going to come after the group. So,
And your pets, and
and
you had one charm that you were controlling as well.
yeah, exactly. So they also had charmed pets too that were helping them fight, but eventually that charmed pet, it would wear off too, and then it'd come after the Enchanter himself. Not anybody else in the group, but the Enchanter himself. So if your Enchanter went down, then all the mezzes broke, and then they were on everybody.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I like to see. It's kind of the classic EverQuest Enchanter again, in a sense, but maybe with some new twists to the class itself.
All right, so we'll bring it in like you've Kodak brought it up already with pets and everything. So we'll bring up the next question, which is if he can charm pets, should it be timed or should it be until the enchanter logs out? What's your takes on that, guys? We'll start with Lex this time.
I definitely think there needs to be a limit. With EverQuest 1, again, I'll pull from that experience, it was basically a debuff. And it was a debuff spell that got resisted fairly easily. I mean, I remember as an enchanter asking summons who had the best magical debuff them before I charm them. But if you say charm this real big bad mob, he hits super hard, and there's no time limit, that means I could essentially rule the zone, because when you charm a mob, the mob is essentially your pet, but he's still constrained by the rules of the mobs. Meaning they have faster out of combat regeneration, they have higher than normal stats because they're designed to take on multiple people.
Mm.
So the timer is definitely something that if they do have charms, it needs to be timed. Or
what about you, Kodiak?
Well, I mean, when I did play an Enchanter, you always had to debuff the mob with that little yellow wolf-looking thingy before the Tashani or whatever, so that the other the mez would stick or whatever. But I mean, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Anyways, no, I think that the pet itself is always been overpowered. You're like you said, you're taking on. Like I remember in the hole, they're taking over those golems, and those golems could just do whatever they wanted, and basically the tank at that point was obsolete because the golem would tank for the group.
Yeah.
So I think they should be able to somehow modify or nerf the charmed pet so that it's not too overpowered.
Dow, your take?
I think it needs to be kind of like a timed effect. I don't think it should last throughout the Enchanter's time in the zone or until he logs out. I think it needs to be timed like it was in EverQuest 1, where he charmed a mob or an NPC. They could follow him around, but eventually it could turn against him unless he obviously repacified it or something like that, and then whatever he needed to do. But at the same time, though, I remember that sometimes when you tried to charm the NPC, sometimes you would fail. So you got to keep that failure in there too, because the Enchanter wasn't always an expert on keeping because you're sitting here, you're trying to bend the will of this NPC's mind into your control. So sometimes the Enchanter has to fail, and that's what I liked about EverQuest. There's always a chance to spell fizzle too, that your spell is going to fail to go off. You're gonna miss the target. So I like that reality, because in reality, we all as people, if you try to target something, sometimes you do miss the target. So keeping that realism with the charmed pet, I like that idea. Keeping it, where eventually the timer runs out. The Enchanter either A, has to ditch this guy, or he's gonna have to attempt to try to recharm, and the chances are he might fail and get beat down again.
Mm.
But at the same time, maybe this time around when he charms it again, it's a shorter duration. That way, like you were saying before, he can't exploit it and use it to rule the zone with.
Yeah, I've got a follow-up question as well to get us going. Normally that would be a spell you would get that you could charm a pet and everything, and then off you go. You either have like a mishap or it works or whatever. What about having a spell that basically grows with you? So the more often you use it, the stronger it gets, the more powerful. What's your take on that, guys? And should there be a limitation to what he can charm?
Well, your spells automatically
Absolutely.
grow as you level, anyways, because your divination and conjuration and all those other things, they level up, which means that you can have more of a stronger spell, anyway. So I think that's a given.
There's definitely got to be limits. There's no way around it. If you don't put like limitations on pets, or even just charm pets in general, like what they can charm, you run the risk of like, oh look, it was a 1 in a million chance, but I managed to charm a raid boss, and now I'm destroying entire capital cities because the NPCs can't kill it.
Yeah. So it looks like we've lost the Lindsay. We hopefully he'll be back in a bit. So we'll carry on with the thoughts. So let's talk about charm limitations. What kind of pet shouldn't he or she be allowed to charm? Should there be limitations at all? What's your take on that?
I think they should have different charm spells for different things. Like if it's a humanoid, it should be a different spell than an animal versus like an elemental. So that way, when you talk about like situational gear, not only are they changing out their gear for different situations, but also their spells depending on what they're going to be charming.
Yeah. Lex?
EverQuest 1 did it so that certain level of spells could only work within a certain range of levels targeting. So if you had a level 10 charm, it would only go to maybe level 13. Which at level 10 is great, but the thing is you don't get another charm spell until 15 or 17.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So your first charm spell would just be to humans, and as you level up, then you get an upgraded human one and maybe an elemental charm spell. So as you progress, you're able to charm more and more different things throughout the world.
Yeah.
Right. And that would be
it's not just one charm spell. Oh, I can go and charm anything I want with it within my my level.
That would certainly make dungeons a lot more interesting, because what if there's humans and then there's some kind of beast that don't technically count as human? You want to be able to charm, you're going to have to keep 2 charm spells up, because if that's the way you want to go about it, either through that's how you want to deal damage, or that's how you want to do your crowd control by adding DPS through charms, it makes things very difficult. And I think that's something that should be explored.
Also, with the perception system too, I think somebody in chat said something about how their intelligence should affect whether they can even be charmed or not.
Yeah, that would make it really interesting. Depending on how intelligent that being is you want to charm. If it's too intelligent, then
you try to charm a wizard, he ain't gonna do it because they have the mental capacity to resist it. But if you try to charm a wolf, no problem. I mean, you just got to think, realistically.
I still remember in EverQuest 1, there were certain mobs that it doesn't matter what level you were or whatnot, they just weren't charmable. Because, it could be a mob that has what used to be called Death Touch, where the first attack that it has is like an instant boom, whatever its target is dead. A harm touch from the old Shadow Knights. Even if he was level 5, you were a level 60 enchanter, charming him would still be way overpowered.
PC Dunkley makes a good point as well. They may integrate spells, charms, common spells with the mana crystals that get charged from the environment. Say a fully crystal lets you more successfully charm a fire or ice pet. Actually, a pretty interesting thought with the environment as well, and the mana crystals, having that influence your charming abilities. Also, from other group members that might have a mana crystal that might be able to help you along. So that sounds actually like a really cool idea.
I love that idea. I'm being told that we have some camera issues.
Yeah, we have camera issues because Dow's out. We know that. We're just hoping that Dow gets back. That's why I haven't messed about with it yet. Okay. So what we'll do is, while we give Dal a few minutes, let's go and talk about the description real quick, because it's short and it's actually got a lot of words, a lot of truth behind it, and a lot of power. Through a single word, the enchanter can turn the intent of an enemy and break even the strongest of wills into submissions. So it seems like they do have a powerful control of the mind, influence of the mind. What's your take on that description, guys? We'll start off with you, Lex.
Well, that's actually making me think like there's almost going to be a new mechanic, like uncontrolled short duration charm. Like Kermit, it swaps him around as an ally, and he starts just attacking baddies. That's what that makes me think.
Mm.
There's no real evidence either way, but that just gets me thinking like that would be kind of neat. As long as he's only attacking things that are in combat, it would add immersion because even though you charm something, he's probably still just going to do his own thing. But you're obviously bending him to your will and being like, "We're friends, go."
Yeah. Kodiak, your take?
I think it's I think that the perception system. So if you charm something that's aggressive, it's not going to change the way that mob is, right? It just means that it's not going to come after you because it likes you, right? But it's still going to be aggressive towards what you guys are attacking. So maybe you can't say hold or bring it back. It's just going to go right to the fight. Or if you find, a rogue or a cleric one or whatever, that it actually performs. It doesn't just fight like any other thing. That's one thing I didn't like about if I was to enchant a shaman or a cleric, it should heal or buff my group because that's its job. That's what it does. You know?
Yeah.
I would agree with that too. I would also like to see enchanters mess with a lot of deep mechanics like aggro ranges, action, like that. So like it's for those of you that are familiar with the old EverQuest stuff, pacifying, which made the aggro range on your target really small, so you could technically just walk past him and he wouldn't even notice you.
So,
Love to see that again.
So what about? I'm going to go and bring in a bit of speculation, a bit of twist to the whole situation with charming and everything. In EverQuest 2, you had two of the classes. You had the illusionist and you had the conjurer. I think it was. One could basically charm a pet, and the other one would summon a pet. Kind of that would duplicate. Right. So what's your take on maybe having something similar? Add that as a twist towards the Enchanter himself. That
Well,
you can
enchanters were able to have pets, but they were only as a defensive mechanism. Like they had those floating swords or whatever. So if they got hit, it would attack. Now they couldn't send it after anything. It would only have to be as a defensive mechanism.
Yeah, I think I could definitely see that again. For a question down the road, I'd like to see specializations maybe off into how EverQuest 2 did things. And I think Worser, the other Enchanter, and the way that they split off in EverQuest was one was a little more defensive, that gave buffs to like casters, and there was a more offensive version that gave buffs to melee and stuff. But yeah, I think I'll step back from that question. I'll leave that for when we get into the specialization talk.
All right. So I think we'll just carry on, and the next question we have is.
User joined your channel.
Hang on. I think DeLindsay is back.
I'm getting here.
Okay, DeLindsay's back, so we'll wait for him. Yep. So if DeLindsay cuts out, guys, it's because they have a storm in their area. So we'll just wait for Dow to come back in, and then we'll let him pitch in, chime his 2 thoughts towards the question, that topic right now.
Yeah, I just don't think that their pet should outperform a summoner's pet. You know, charmed or not charmed. You know.
Just bringing him in, trying to get him onto the camera, and then we'll go from there, guys.
All right. Looks like it's working.
Yeah, according to Frog, though, you could spend AAs and you could actually
Yes, you could.
control
You could.
that thing. But I always just had a little, like an Enchanter alt that I would just log into,
User disconnected
get
from your
myself
channel.
KEI and stuff, and that was it. So, never
No,
actually.
you could, but at the level that you could get the AAs to control that measly little pet,
User joined your channel.
you had like a dire charm, which was a last until you leave the zone charm, which even as an enchanter, I hated it. Annoying as all get out. But at that point in your career as an enchanter, you would rather charm something than to use your little dinky pet. Even if you didn't want to charm him, you didn't even bring him out because he wasn't even worth it.
Yeah, you would just find the biggest, baddest guy in the zone, charm him, and he would last forever, and that's what you would use to, And like I said, a lot of times it would outperform. It would tank better than the tank. It would DPS better than your DPS. Like, it was super overpowered.
Yep.
But like what we said,
Yep.
if the charm broke and it turned on the enchanter and he had something else mezzed, then it was a complete wipe. So
Right.
I mean, it has pros and cons.
Yeah. I mean, the enchanter was always this really great risk versus reward class. You're taking some major risks that other classes can't take, and if you were good, you stood to gain massive amounts of experience, drops, everything. But you had to be good. You couldn't let your guard down. You had to basically pay attention to all these buff timers. Then you had to watch your pets charm, and it was intense. I actually had to stop playing it because it was raising my blood pressure.
Right, so let's go and bring Dow's thought into this. I'll quickly revise
it
the
is
question.
super high, because you got 20 different things going on at once. You got to pay attention to everything on the field, everything everybody's doing, the mobs, incoming, pulling, your charmed pet, your buff durations, making sure everybody has their mana regen on. Enchanter was a lot to play.
Yeah.
So Dow, what's your take on the question? Basically, should there be a limitation to what you can charm, or should it be, skill, depending on what kind of skill you have? What's your take on that?
I think there should be a limitation to maybe like boss mobs, possibly named. Things around that nature. I think where you'd have to limit an enchanter. You think of a dragon. A low peon enchanter by itself is not gonna manipulate the mind of a dragon. It's like impossible. You'd have to be like an enchanter that lived 2,000 years or something like that, and learn dragon speak or something.
That's like why I said you should low levels only humanoids. Then maybe in your 20s you can start doing humanoids and beasts. Then in your 30s you can do humanoids, beasts, and elementals. And then once you hit level 50 or whatever the cap's going to be, or even if it's an AA option, then you can do dragonkin type enchanting. But it takes a lot of skill, a lot of years of doing it and everything before you're able to charm those massive creatures.
Should that be something that should be pursued that everybody can do, or should people be limited to their options of what they can charm?
Like I said, I think it has to do with the perception system. If it's an intelligence creature, it's going to resist a lot more than a stupid creature.
Yeah, I could see that too. If you bring that part of the picture into, you're bringing the perception system into. I could see, the enchanter actually being able to, charm a more stupid, lower level type NPC rather than a very smart NPC. And obviously, we know dragons are very smart, so you're not gonna be able to charm that. So I could see that maybe even random mobs within a group of species of mobs where you can't quite enchant them either. I think that make it more interesting as well. So not all the time are you going to be able to enchant that same type of species of mob. There's going to be one within that species that can resist.
I mean, can you? It's like we talked about in the previous shows. The undead, technically, they shouldn't be able to be charmed at all. because
Yeah, except for
their
Necro.
mind is gone.
Except
yeah.
for Necro.
Yeah.
A Necro has the or a Dire Lord has the ability and power to speak with the dead and work with the dead. So an Enchanter, no, they enchant things. They mesmerize you by their charisma, and their ability to sweet talk you. While as in dealing with the dead, you're more on the spiritual side, kind of the demonic side, so to speak. It doesn't really have to be demonic, but it's got to be dark. The dead.
I just had a real. I doubt it would
Epiphany?
ever fly, and I doubt it would ever work. But I
Go
just
for
had
it.
this little idea.
Go for it.
What if, as an enchanter, you were, say, going to go enchant an ogre or charm an ogre? You had to know the ogre's language, because if say I'm a psychic or I can put thoughts in people's heads, and all you understood was German, and I started putting thoughts in your head in English.
It's not
Just
gonna
like,
work.
Yeah, you're not. That's actually a good
Yeah,
idea.
actually, a good
that
idea.
makes absolutely
Makes sense.
absolute
If it's-
How are you going
sense.
to cast a spell in their language that they're going to understand without knowing that language?
Because because ogres technically aren't all magical and everything and understand the magic language, but you're speaking it. So if you want to use or influence them, you have to know their common tongue.
Well, it's just
That
like,
would be-
you would have to learn Elder Dragon if you wanted to charm a dragon. Stuff like that. I like that's a good idea. I like that.
Yep. So we'll carry on. I think we've
Actually, same thing with illusions. You should have to know the language. How can you impersonate another race if you can't even speak the language?
Yep. But we'll get to that one in a bit because we do have illusions
Sorry,
as
I
one of
saw
our
it in
questions.
chat.
Yep. That's why I didn't say anything yet because I was hoping to actually bring that in when we get to the illusion part. So next question is the Enchanter and his role within crafting. Because as far as I understood, in EverQuest, the Enchanter actually could make things or do things in crafting that helped you along. So what's your take on that,
enchanting
guys?
the metals in the bars of stuff for jewel crafting and blacksmithing and stuff like that, so you could make magical weapons and armor and rings and all that other stuff.
So should he have that?
They could technically crystallize mana for some recipes as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, you could do
clay,
something in pottery that
all that
required magic clay. You would get clay, give it to an enchanter, he turns it into enchanted clay.
Yep. So that would basically be something that would be the class-specific crafting portion of the Enchanter.
Yeah, what we were talking
they
about
can
off the
provide
show.
special components to everyone.
And I don't want to get into the whole crafting thing, but I think that there should be some classes that have certain skills and some classes that don't. For as far as crafting,
because that gives them a reason to be sought out.
Mm-hmm.
True.
I always love class-specific crafting stuff. Like I said, we're not going to go into crafting today, but that's a whole other show.
That's a couple shows.
So on that question, then, do you think that they should do something similar in Pantheon? Give the Enchanter something that will relate to crafting certain items into magical items, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they should actually. So just like how a summoner could maybe, so you used to be able to pick up random items and hand them to your pets. Okay, just any mob drop, right? Well, maybe they can pick up that item, enchant it with something before handing it off to a pet to give it a bonus, just like a summoned pet toy would do. Maybe that's an idea.
It would be really neat to see enchanters get the bulk of these. Sometimes they're called combat innates. Sometimes they're called weapon procs. Basically, a short duration buff. Enchant someone the tank's sword with the ability to maybe heal himself for a little bit. But you do go to a rogue and get into something that it catches them on fire. Give them a good amount of enchantments for weapons, even if they're just a short duration buff.
Yeah, instead of buffing the person, you're just buffing the weapon or something.
Technically, yes. Although it would just be a buff on them.
But yeah.
Dow, your take?
I don't know. That's kind of that's a lot to kind of fathom in there for a minute.
Well, so we'll basically just carry on there then, and the the next question is related to specializations within the Enchanter class itself. So, what kind of specializations, if any, should the Enchanter have, and what should they imply?
It would actually be good if, when we were talking about like dragons, or like maybe they could specialize in dragons, or they could specialize in giants, or they could specialize in any other kind of epic type creature. But then that's it. So like my enchanter, I went down the dragon path, right? But your enchanter might be the giant. So depending on what raid or what is zone or whatever we're in, you're going to determine where you're going to be.
Mm-hmm. Lex, your take?
Well, going back to what we were saying about EverQuest 2, I would like to see specializations more of a specialized in a specific area. Maybe you could see a specialization in a permanent style pet, not quite to the level of like a summoner, because summoner is just pure pet. That's what you think when you're a summoner. But maybe a pet that would give some kind of utility. Or you could say specialize in your buffs so that your buffs are a little stronger, or you could specialize in damage, or even just your crowd control and become a specialist in those areas.
Dal, your take?
Yeah, I think the specialization would be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
Well, there's only really, you can only specialize, like you said, in enchantments, which is buffs, specialize in pets, or charming. Those are pretty much. Then you can take each one of those down multiple roads, but those are pretty much.
That's what I kind of like to see as well. What Lex just said, basically, because that gives you, as a player or as a group, different opportunities as well. So if you have like Enchanter 1, he's specialised in crowd control. The other Enchanter is specialised in charming. The other one specialised in doing damage, for instance. Like that gives you or the group options to maybe say, okay, there's no wizard around at the moment, or there's no other person doing DPS, so we've got a DPS enchanter, but we kind of need mana or whatever, or charming as well to help us out in this dungeon or whatever. We'll take a second enchanter that's specialised on that path. It kind of gives you as a player who's playing an enchanter more opportunities, more possibilities to group up with people, and it gives the group as well more chances as well to mix and match and not just have that constant. We have a tank, we have a healer, we have a wizard, we have a DPS melee person in the group, and we have a bard or an enchanter to give us mana. That gives you more opportunities as well. So I kind of like the idea of maybe trying to break it down a bit, so you can specialize in one path, but he's still useful with all the other ones, of course, to a certain level. That's what I'd kind of like to see. Gives you more possibilities.
I think one thing that a lot of us veterans and probably even a lot of the newer MMO players really want to see is basically not every warrior is created equal. You are still unique within your class.
Yeah, true.
Well, I never really liked, even like the way that WoW did it with the trees, like you had to stay within that tree or whatever. I always liked the way EQ1 did it, where, hey, if I want to spend the time, I can earn as many AAs as I want to make my guy. Now, one thing is the way that my play style is going to dictate what I go for first, right? If I want to go towards, combat fury, or do I want to go through to buff reinforcements? You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to play, you know what I mean? So eventually I'm going to have it all, but I'm going to go, and that's kind of what was that, that one where they had a huge grid system where you had to like travel over here to unlock this and then to unlock the next thing you want. Yeah, something like that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm actually a fan of the AA system, and I'm a fan of the talent tree system. I think they're both great systems. I would love to see some here, maybe. I haven't really taken to the whole talent or skill web idea, because to me, that streams a lot of work on everyone's part. But I mean, maybe we can get some kind of skill tree with a smaller AA list attached to it. That'd be kind of
Well,
cool. I
because
mean,
the only reason why I say not the like the way the AAs work is because it would be like, oh, you need to max out this line, you know, max out this line and that line, and none of it else matters. You know, where if you had to, you know, like I said, to unlock all these things to get to point A, then you have to unlock all these other things to get to point B. You know, I just think that's a better progression system.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll bring in the next question, and then we'll go into open talk on the Enchanter, and this relates to Frogzor's question, what Kodiak briefly brought up. Illusions, should an Enchanter get illusions, and should they influence faction depending on what kind of illusion? A good example from Lexa was if we have a dwarf Enchanter that pulls up an illusion of an ogre, should that influence his faction in any way? So who wants to kick it off? Alexa's.
I'll go ahead.
Go on then, Lex.
So basically, how it used to work in EverQuest 1 was I'm an enchanter. I turn myself, you know, say I'm a gnome enchanter. I turn myself into a high elf. I can walk into the high elf. I'm not, you know, I'm not super liked because I'm still a stranger, but I'm tolerated. I can walk pretty much anywhere in the city. I'm pretty much neutral because they just see, hey, you know, you see another high elf walking up to you, so you feel confident knowing that they're on your side. Neutral. But that way, you could add a whole bunch of quests to where, say, as part of an Enchanter epic quest, you have to go into one of these evil cities. You have to illusion yourself and find this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a whole lot of depth to it there, and it makes them functional. It makes them fun to play with because, hey, look, I'm an ogre. Hey, look, I'm a dwarf. You know. So you got fun, you got cosmetic, you got functional, and now you've got them in quests.
I like I said earlier, I think that just to make it one little step further, even though you might acquire the spell, it's not going to work. You can't go and become an elf in the elf city unless you know the language, you know the, you know, whatever. Because how are you going to talk to anybody? They're gonna say, oh, he's a phony, and kick his ass out of the town. You know.
Yeah,
so I think
they would have to add certain elements to it. If you pick up an illusion, that doesn't necessarily mean that you could use it. So you would have to speak the common tongue of that illusion. Have studied it for maybe some time. Maybe give the Enchanter a study spell that he has to study over time, that he understands what's going on and how that race, you know, lives and works or whatever. Or that animal, for instance, like a wolf, if he wants to take on the form of that illusion of a wolf or anything, he's got to study
and when
it.
it fizzles, he turns into an elephant.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That would kind of make it interesting and more dynamic and pure to the whole sense of it being. Dow, your take?
I find it interesting. I mean, I'm kind of lost here right now, trying to get all this tech crap worked out here. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. I kind of like what's being tossed around right now.
Cool. So those are the questions we have. So we're going now to open chat on the Enchanter. Anything you guys want to elaborate on that hasn't been brought up yet, Enchanter wise? Maybe go more into depth. No?
Enchanter wise?
Yeah.
Well, shoot. I don't know. I mean, I like the basic EverQuest Enchanter. Maybe just throw some twist on it. I do like the idea of maybe using language as kind of an impediment, where you know you kind of got to know the language of the NPC. Obviously, you know, dog or cat or bunny rabbit or anything like that, so to speak, or deer, that's easy. You know, those are just animals. But when it comes to your intelligent creatures, yes, you should probably know their language. That would be an interesting concept if they could implement that. Definitely enchanters being the only ones to enchant metals, I think. No other class should be able to enchant metals. Of course, I think we'll have some dwarf class people out there, or dwarf race people going, no, dwarves should be able to enchant metal. So, yeah, for the most part, I think I kind of like some of those ideas
So
that are being tossed around.
we have a thought from chat. How would you feel if enchanters wouldn't be able to use illusions at all? After all, who said they are going that route? Good
I
question.
mean that's a very good way to go about this. I mean, what if we don't get illusions? I mean, I'm fine with that because in most other games, illusions are mostly just fluff, novelty. So I'm cool with without them being there. But being an enchanter, I'm kind of like the manipulator of reality almost in a way. So I should be able to manipulate lots of different aspects of the world when when push comes to shove. If I need to get past a guard, I should be able to do something that'll make him not come after me should I run past him. I think you could do it as an illusion, but there could be other ways to do it. I mean, I'd be perfectly open to it.
With a huge faction
User
system like they're
disconnected
trying
from
to
your
set
channel.
up, I think it would be pretty safe to say that they're going to have illusions.
User joined your channel.
We have another good question in chat.
Go on then.
As we seemingly have 3 arcane classes, the summoner, the wizard, and the enchanter, how would you like to see the classes be explained lore-wise? Why is a summoner and enchanter different in the lore? Why wouldn't a wizard be able to summon things like a summoner does? Matter to you? Is it fine to just say they chose different arcane schools of magic, in effect making them pretty much the same lore-wise?
Well, it's like in real life, though, isn't it? You have your woodworking jobs, and you've got your carpenter, you've got your woodworker, and you've got your whatever. Like, it's like your real life decisions.
Making, woodworking, and something else that's still and a lumberman, a lumber person, house builder, framer.
Yep. So it's like
they all work with wood, but it's different aspects of wood.
Exactly. So it's no different with the arcane way of things. So I think basically at the end of the day, it's the path they chose, or based on their family tree line, or whatever you want to go, what kind of story you want to write behind it. You have your wizards, your summoners, your enchanters, is the way I see it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well.
Yeah, I've always looked at it as an enchanter is just a manipulator. They manipulate what's already there. Summoner actually uses arcane magics to create things. Not manipulate them, but just create things. Create a fire elemental out of a campfire or what have you. Whereas a wizard uses elements strictly for destructive purposes. That's it. They use it. It's more not so much different like family trees, rather than a different mentality and belief structure.
Yeah.
They just read different books.
Yeah. Yep. Well, wizards. I mean, if you look at the class, the two classes, a wizard and a summoner. A summoner summons the elements from the planes, the elemental planes. You got to think of other dimensions. A wizard doesn't dabble with the elemental plane. He dabbles within the vicinity around him, the energy around him. So that's how you got to kind of look at the difference between a wizard and a summoner. And also, the summoner will bring about, like, he can summon bags of holding, summon water, summon food. So he summons things to him. While as a wizard manipulates, everything around him, using fire or ice. He studied the arcane to manipulate those and use them as power, but he doesn't actually have the ability to summon them and control them like a summoner does, in a sense. That's kind of the difference. A wizard basically just throws fireballs and ice balls, and that's pretty much it. He's just a big, bomber of spells.
Right, so Svarti follows up with that. That would mean that a druid and wizard is the same. They just chose to go different ways. No, it's not. A wizard is specialized on the arcane, whereas a druid would be more on the nature side. So it's totally two different things.
A nature priest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Basically.
He deals with nature. So he's like, it's almost like, okay, the druid worships the trees and the ground, and so his god is the trees and ground, while a wizard he's arcane, so his god is the arcane. So he draws his power from the arcane. but he doesn't summon elementals like the summoner does, because the summoner obviously dabbles into the planes of the elements where he can manipulate the element and use lava, all that stuff, and bend it to his will, so to speak. So they're not all the same. You have to, the best recommendation I could do is go to a Dungeons and Dragons role-playing book and look at the difference between wizards and stuff like that and see.
Druid is a tree hugger and a wizard is a tree burner.
Greenpeace lover.
More or less. Very simply, yes.
Alright, so he's following up on that, saying, I'm thinking this is more in the way of why they can do it and not what they do. Like how in D&D the wizard is someone trained in the Arcane and a sorcerer being born with the talent to wield it.
Mm.
Yeah, well, sorcerers are something completely different in D&D.
Yeah.
Like a wizard turned on their head, so it's really hard to put that into an MMO term, especially we have one with that's basically trying to something familiar to other MMOs.
Yeah.
But with their own little twists. I mean, I don't think a sorcerer from D&D would make a good fit in Pantheon, but I mean,
no.
I could be completely wrong.
If you go back to the original D&D, I should have said that. Go back to the original D&D, not this 3.5 and 5.5 rules where they got red wizards against the sorcerers and all these other mix of multi-classing BS. Go back to pure class casters and pure class warriors, pure class. No mix. Get away from the mix crap and go back to like Gary Gygax when he first originally created Dungeons and Dragons before it got all bent out of shape. Then you had all these guys who were like, well, I want my wizard to be able to use bow arrows. So they're bending the rules to what they want to see fit for their adventure, and that's pathetic. It's disgusting, and I hate multi-classing, okay? Everybody should know by now if they watch the stream, I hate multi-classing. I don't like it. I like pure class only. True.
Multi-classing kills.
Yep. Multi-classing destroys things. It gets manipulated. Then everybody gets liberal with it. Next thing you know, it's just a smash of crap. And then everybody's got every ability like Guild Wars. You got healer, tank warriors / wizards in one.
Dow, do you want to, while you're in the moment, do you want to go and bring the disclaimer, please?
Oh, the disclaimer. Yes, I don't like the mixed stream. That's exactly right, Firesmith. The disclaimer here. Hey, guess what, everybody? We're speculating theory crafting here. What we're talking about here is nothing final. It does not go into Pantheon. However, some of the ideas we do bring along or do to discuss do come from some of the Pantheon tenets or some of the class talk or discussion that might have taken place in the forums. But like I said, we're theory crafting and speculating here. We do have the developers watch the show. Matter of fact, I was in the VIP forum and one of the devs said, hey, thank you for what you guys do. We watch your show. So that was an awesome thing to know that right there, it's the truth. We're not BSing you. So come on board our show. Give your input, give your opinion. Let the rest of the world know, hey, this is what you think about it. Give the devs an idea what you think about it. I mean, this is the place to come aboard. We invite everybody. You can jump in our TeamSpeak channel. You can jump on cam if you like, and we'll put you on as a guest, and you can discuss what your thoughts or opinions of it, or discuss it in chat here, and we'll try to bring your opinion up. But ultimately, we're theory crafting, so that is a disclaimer. Remember, we were mistaken for devs when we first started out, but obviously you guys know we're not the devs. You have a little bit of pull with them, maybe a little slightly with ideas. Perhaps, hopefully, if Brad's watching, come on the show.
So I put out the question to the audience, what would you guys like to see with the Enchanter? What are some of your crazy ideas? And Frogzor wrote, I'd like to see the Enchanters make mana potions and not other classes.
Unfortunately, that's almost the realm of the shaman with alchemy.
Yeah.
It was mana regen potions, not actual mana potions.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if it was just a straight up like your standard Korean pot guzzling MMO, yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, and Smarty says I actually like the idea of making the Enchanter basically be some kind of psychic instead of a mage of some kind. Well, if we like we talked while Dow was off, the short description does kind of give a psyche to the description. I'll just read it one more time. Through a single word, the enchanter can turn the intent of an enemy and break even the strongest of wills into submission. So it does have that psyche touch to it, that he can basically influence the psyche of his enemies or individuals. So that might be something along the lines that it's going to be more of a psychic mage, some kind of thing.
Yeah, but then, like I said, we were talking about also, if you're talking about psychic and controlling the mind, then the mob has to have a mind. Something that's undead or whatever isn't going to have a brain because it's
undead.
It's undead.
Which is actually how they did it in EverQuest 1.
Yeah.
But I mean, without having a lot of detail on like damage types and stuff like that, it's real hard to even make a speculation on will he be more psychic based, because psychic damage versus arcane damage, if you want to get technical, isn't even close to the same. So that would also incur a whole new set of resists and possibly mechanics. So you're like, it's hard to say.
Yeah, that won't work versus PvP because we know half the people that play.
They actually had that in EverQuest 2. You would, the illusionist and so would have psychic damage more or less. It wasn't called that, but it was displayed like that, and it was more of a debuff than anything else. A debuff over time is what it used to be.
Oh, I love that one. Sleepy Boy 86. Now you know my love of multi-classing. No mixing. Period.
Right, so he's got a question though. Like, how about specialization within classes? Not like 3.
Yeah, I'd say some specialization. Yeah, that's not a problem if you can specialize in a particular area. But also just remember, there's got to be some pros and cons.
Definitely.
Definitely, like Brad said in the AMA, we're going to give you some cool abilities, but at the same time, we're also going to penalize you, and that's what I like, because you got to work with that penalty. So that helps the interdependency and the balancing, because once you start making everybody too much on a level keel and being able to give them all the same abilities, guess what? What's the point of grouping? Why get together and play the game?
Right. Yeah.
You might as well just sit at home, eat hot dogs, and watch TV. By yourself.
People don't like hearing penalty. No one does.
No, no one likes hearing penalty.
To know that we're taking something from you, right? But here's the actual reality of it all, especially in a video game. Don't have weaknesses. There's nothing interesting. Nothing for you to overcome. There's nothing for you to seek to improve upon.
I actually have a fantastic way of actually explaining that and getting everybody on board with having penalties. Think of it like in real life, guys. The 4 of us, the 4 VoT crew, have come together to bring you guys this show. We all have our weaknesses and our strengths, and with us combined together, it's turned into one major strength. Even though we have disadvantages as individuals, that's how you look at it. We've come together.
I can't read.
Yeah, Cody, I can't read. Lexer is terrible as ugly as hell. I'm handsome. Arnilla is angry.
That's how you should look at it, basically.
There's still an open slot for a happy person.
So that's how we should look at it. Your weakness
is a good example.
Your weakness becomes the strength within the group, because the group combined together makes your weakness become an advantage. That's how you should look at it. Right, and there was another question as well from Swati again. What weapons would you guys like the Enchanter to wield other than the obvious staff?
See, I would like to see more books and scrolls and enchanted totems and stuff like that, instead of just the standard weapons, swords, staffs, other things. Bring some more lore-driven items into it.
Yeah, like the actual spell book in hand. I mean, like that would be awesome, like a requirement, to have your other hand, then you can wield your dagger.
I mean, it would be cool. It would be, instead of just holding the book, right? Like how they put the staff out when they're casting. It'd be cool if they flip the book open while they were casting and then put it away. Yeah. That would be like the animation for the spell book. That
would be awesome. That would be really cool to cast that charm spell. So he pulls out this book and you see him mumming down the words, and all of a sudden he's cast that spell and then the book goes away again. Oh, Brad, if you're watching, those are the animations we're looking for. class acts like that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Man, that'd be awesome. Because your spellcasters could technically do that when they're standing back and not actually in the melee. You could actually make that animation, which would probably go good with the timing effect.
Mhm.
And then, if you're getting schwacked, obviously, you can't pull your book out when you're getting beat down. So that'd be an awesome animation too. You're getting schwacked,
Or-
trying to pull your book.
imagine that he's got the book out and then he gets swacked and he drops it. That's it. The spell's gone.
Yeah. you spell fizzle.
Yep. Boom, it's gone.
God.
Just joking,
That would
guys.
suck.
Or even a scroll. They have to. I can't because I have to click my mouse or whatever. But they open the scroll. Read the spell or whatever, and then the scroll disappears or vanishes.
It would be
Yeah.
very neat animation.
It would be neat, yeah.
I'm actually on a little bit of a different level with the enchanters because I view them as manipulators of reality. I expect them to kind of bend the rules in places. I would actually love to see them with like a short sword.
I don't know.
A dagger, maybe?
I'd say dagger, but
well,
short
in EverQuest 1, they could do one-hand blunt, wands, books counted as one-hand blunt, and one-hand piercing. And they could do two-hand blunt, sorry. So, but I would really like to see them with just not a long sword that you'd see a warrior with, but like a short sword. Something that's maybe a little more flashy than functional.
Well, the only
almost
thing,
like a casting focus item.
the only thing I see with the enchanter is because the enchanter can manipulate the mind. He's going to manipulate NPCs that can carry
What about
those
a
things.
skull? What about carrying around a skull or something?
Yeah,
What about...
Because
Yeah.
What
you
about...
could always give your pets weapons in the game, so the enchanter could always give his pet, a sword and shield.
Well, since we're going crazy here, what about him sitting in a wheelchair with a mind control thing on his head?
Yeah, Professor X Enchanter.
I would say Magneto.
I'm sorry, guys.
Magneto's in there.
I had to do it. I'm sorry. I had to bring that up.
Oh my God, we're gonna have a new Pantheon class: Magneto and Dr. X, or Professor X.
Yeah, the good enchanter and the bad.
Oh god.
That was just so wrong.
I had to. I'm sorry. I had to. It was just
That was
sitting
so
in my
wrong,
head. I had
bro.
to bring it out.
Oh no. Psh, slap. Clear up. All right, get back on track, Enchanter.
Makes me think of the movie
short sword.
Intern.
Short sword for an Enchanter. I mean, that'd have to be something that you could earn, maybe way down the road. I wouldn't say not necessarily early off the bat.
Maybe they can't. Well, no, because that'd be summoners that would create the items, not them.
Hi. Let's see, what's Sleepy say? The idea is that if you wanted a craft-based enchanter, you could pick up a skill related to it, but by specializing in craft, you don't get the fight buffs a combat enchanter would get, or illusions that a high enchanter would get. Yeah, we kind of talked about that idea a little bit. I thought, like, you specialized in crafting, you were a grandmaster in one, but you couldn't be awesome in all the others.
Yeah, so you'd either specialize in enchantments, which would be buffs and crafting or enchanting, or you can specialize in charming, offense or whatever,
Mhm.
or those are really the only
Yeah,
two.
I guess I could see
Or
that.
pets, yeah.
So yeah, I guess I could see that. Yeah. No, I'm talking about other previous streams there, Frog. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that as far as crafting and specializing a little bit, but we're gonna do another crafting segment eventually here.
Yeah.
Especially when they start releasing more crafting info. But yeah, that's kind of cool. So, yeah, I can maybe see the enchanter getting the short sword later on down the road, perhaps at a higher level, but at low level, no. Because sometimes the enchanter at low level they have to use either the dagger or the staff when they're fighting their mob. So I'd have to see.
Oh, yeah. It's just one of those little things where it's like, it's not that big of a deal to add it, but kind of gives you that feel of they can bend the rules a little bit because they're just like, reality's mob, that kind of thing. It was just a neat idea.
All right. Well, I know you want an enchanter because then that'll be your third alt that you'll be going around and throwing swords at everybody.
Lexer just wants to play one of everything. That's all.
I think that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna test everything out first. So
Actually, if I when I do finally get my pledge and if I get one of the ones that allow me to get into alpha and or beta, testing. I will not be actually making a Dire Lord until release. I'll make everything but.
Cool.
Because when the game is released, I want my Dire Lord to just feel fun, fresh, and new right from the day.
So for everyone just quickly tuning, who's just tuned in or whatever, we're talking about the Enchanter here on our show today. And we've covered quite a few questions. And we have announced that we will be doing a second show on Tuesdays, starting next week, where we will be covering forum topics. We'll be talking about the newsletter every second Tuesday when it comes out. So we'll talk about the newsletter when that comes out. We'll be talking about, like I said, the hot topics in the forums,
Media
everything that's on social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc. What's been put out there by VR, and so
all the talk of the town.
Yep, please join us on Tuesdays as we go full on community, where it's all going to be about you guys.
Yep, all the forums and stuff like that, all the posts out there.
Be here.
Oh yeah, Lex won't be here.
For the opening show, you won't be there, but
yeah, it's all right though. It's okay.
I'm gonna go cry.
Yep, you better go off and cry.
So any further thoughts, guys, or?
Not really. I mean, I got an off-topic thought that it's just from the AMA that sprung into my head, but that's.
Go for it.
No, I was just thinking about the outpost idea that Brad. I guess somebody brought up in the forums and they talked about it, and it was brought up again. And the outpost, I love the outpost idea because they're talking about non-instance, zones, and there's going to be no instance combat zones, which is awesome. But the idea of taking the outpost, putting it out in the middle of nowhere, using it as a guild or a group of players build an outpost, and they can set it there and leave it there for a time being. And then as they level up or go away from that zone, they take down the outpost, and then they move it to the next zone they might be going to. And then other players, when they're offline, can actually visit the outpost where they might have merchants, blacksmithers there. So I could kind of see in this being an awesome guild
that meeting area
thing. Yeah, a meeting area, but also where the guild could actually sell gear that they've gotten in zones at this outpost to other players.
And plus the other thing as well, they said that if somebody visits your outpost or uses it, or an NPC comes and uses it, it benefits you as well in some kind of way.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really cool idea. Kind of something similar to what Kodiak suggested with the crafting show we had, with you as a crafter being able to set up a tent or whatever and mend people's stuff. So it's a really cool approach with the outpost, definitely, for sure. So Svarti follows up with, would you say that the enchanters would be the mind specialists, the summoners, the cross-dimensional specialists, teleports and summoning things from places, and the wizards like elemental specialists?
Well, the wizard could teleport in EverQuest 1. He could teleport himself, like behind a mob. He could do that, if I remember correctly. Well,
he could teleport whole groups and everything.
And he could teleport whole groups. But at one time, I'm thinking D&D, sorry, where a wizard could actually teleport himself behind a mob, kind of interdimensional door. That was right. He could open a door and cross over a little bit behind his enemy, but that was it. A summoner can actually summon heroes, which was like in EverQuest 1.
Yeah, Call of the Hero.
Yep, Call of the Hero. So a mage could actually bring somebody from the other side of the zone to where they were, to their location. So he can summon stuff to him. So, yeah, I just say, Savardi, go read EverQuest 1, the Wizard, the Enchanter, and the Magician, and look at the different aspects. And that'll kind of clarify a little bit better, because we're trying to throw you bits and pieces of it, not really bringing you the full picture of it. So that's what I could suggest, so you could understand kind of where we're coming from and why we're speaking the way we do about the Enchanter, the Wizard, and the Summoner.
Well, it comes down to what kind of magic player, what kind of class do you want to play? Do you want to be a damage dealer mage class? Then play a Wizard. If you want to be mind control, whatever, then you'd play an Enchanter. If you're more DPS oriented, because you want pets and damage and whatever, you'd play a Summoner.
Yeah.
But they're all casters,
Yeah. It's basically it's what it always comes down to. Is if you look at it, we have 12 classes, and they're all broke down between tanks, healers, melee DPS, and range DPS. So and then those are broken down into 3 different trees. Do you want to be like the main healer? Do you want to be the support healer? Do you want to be whatever? The same with the tank. Do you want to be a physical tank that takes on a lot of damage? Do you want to be a hybrid tank? Do you want to be a tank that does a bit of everything? And it's the same with the DPS. Do you want to be like a monk that gets, with his fists and everything at close quarter combat? Do you want to be more sneaky like the rogue? It's how it is in games. They always have to break it down.
It's how you want it. What do you enjoy playing?
Yeah. Pretty much. That's what it comes down to.
So I think we'll call it wraps then, unless you guys have anything else, and we'll get into the final statements.
No, not that I can think of, unless you want to play the tavern video one more time for the tavern music.
Well, we can play the video one more time. Just remind everybody. So I'll go and bring that up.
Get ready for your tavern music.
Here we go. So this is what happens next Tuesday, everybody.
There's a funny story behind that one. Blaring tavern music.
And there you have it, everyone. So, with that, we'll go into the closing statements. And today we'll start with our future, hope to be more often on camera host, Kodiak. Go on then.
I would like to see the more traditional Enchanter, but maybe, like I said, with some different twist to it. Like, you've got to know the language, you've got to progress into charming different things, start with beasts, then humanoids, and stuff like that, to just give it a little bit of a twist from the original Enchanter from EQ1.
Lex?
Well, I'm right there with Kodiak. I mean, I do miss my traditional Enchanter from EverQuest. I want to see something a little different, but still get that feel that's a little familiar. I would like to see them play around a little bit with maybe some non-standard items. The biggest thing for me is going to be make the Enchanter what it was in EQ1. It's not part of the Holy Trinity, but it's just as important as everything in it.
Okay. Down?
Yeah, I have to agree with Lexer and Kodiak. I mean, I really want to bring back the EverQuest 1 Enchanter. I thought it was a really well-designed class. Just put a little twist to him, maybe, perhaps. Definitely the idea of having to know some of the language of some of the NPCs. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I think that's the way you could actually kind of change it up a bit and make it a little bit different, especially with the perception system too. So, yeah, I'd say definitely I have to agree with them.
Cool.
That's what I'm looking forward to. Keep it simple, because that class ultimately, it was a hard class to play, and it appealed to the right folks, and they knew how to manage the Enchanter.
Awesome. So my closing statement, I'm going to try and slow this down for you, because with my closing statement, that means the deadline officially will be closed as soon as this show goes off air. That's it. No more entries will be accepted. So if you still are finishing up, I will try and extend my speech, outgoing speech, as long as I can. So first off, I'd like to thank all of you guys for the continued support. If you didn't catch yesterday, we did a show yesterday. We covered the AMA on Reddit with Brad answering the community's questions. That's already on the tube for you guys to watch. Thanks for all the support. Like I said, we really, really do appreciate it. We would love to see just other people come on the show instead of just us four as regulars. Please, if you want to come on, you don't have to be on camera, but you can still be in TeamSpeak and chat with us, give us your input. Would be great to have some other insights as well, heard from the community, see what you guys really have to say about stuff. So please, come join us. And
If I
Yeah.
can say one thing
Go
about
on
the
then.
AMA,
Go on in.
I just want to say I'm incredibly proud of the Pantheon community during the AMA. I didn't see a single troll. I didn't see a single
Mm.
fight that wasn't backed up with honest worry and facts.
Yep.
I can't even express how proud I am of everyone just because of that. It makes me feel 100 times better about the community already.
Yeah.
Well, that I like Brad's answers. He gave
Yes.
good, solid answers for almost every single question. So
He was honest. If there was something he couldn't answer for whatever reason, not ironed out or whatnot, he honestly said, I just can't talk about it right now because I don't have any info.
Yeah. Definitely. He was very on the ball, very honest with his answers, and definitely sticking to the game tenets, So if you read the game tenets, Brad is really sticking to those. The team's sticking to those. There was no worries because we did see some WoW suggestions and ideas from WoW that just, would actually, believe it or not, make me so angry because you're mixing classes. But he kind of, shot a little bit of those down because, that's not what they're making. This ain't going to be the World of Warcraft killer that he's not looking to do that. And that's what people got to get in their heads. And in our community, I think we have it down in our heads that he's not looking to build the WoW killer. He's looking at building a game that's for us to have fun and play. No WoW killer, no copycat, his own game, with the team. So,
successful
I was impressed.
game with a great community.
Very successful. Yes, definitely.
I mean, I'm not a fan of WoW, but you still have to respect it for what it's done for MMOs.
Yeah.
It
If you like
definitely,
cartoons, that's cool.
So with
like
that,
Blizzard.
guys, we will see you next Tuesday with our first Tavern Talk. And on Thursday, we will be announcing the winners for the competition. So stay tuned for that. Depending on how long that goes, we might throw in something else as well to as well. We don't know yet. Yep.
one more
Thanks,
thing.
Firesmith, for joining Discord. Exactly. Follow us.
Thanks.
Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. Join our Discord server. You want to get part of the discussion or anything? You're interested in the guild? Have any questions about the VOT? Discord's a place where to connect to us and get in contact with us and have a good chat. You want to say something, Dan?
Yes, just one other thing too. Don't forget about the VOT store where you can buy some of our VOT swag gear. Everything you purchase, guys, it goes to pay for the store, the actual gear's production, and anything that's left over we use to buy, giveaways for the show. So please remember that the VOT store is there for you, www.votstore.com, and there's some really good gear there. Please check it out, and if you like it, buy some.
Yep. Good swag, guys. So with that, we will see you next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, tune in.
Tavern Talk. Bring some beer too.
Take care,
Same
guys.
bat time, same bat channel.
Yep.
Yes.
See ya.
See you guys.
Bye.
Safe travels.
Thank you.